Before we go any further, viewer discretion is advised. What you're about to hear isn't fiction. It's not a script. It's the verbatim courtroom testimony from one of Hollywood's most recognizable voices, Eddie Murphy, delivered under oath. During a federal trial that has shaken the very foundations of the entertainment industry. For decades, whispers have circled the Hollywood hills, rumors of elite gatherings, hidden deals, and a darker side of fame that no one dares to speak about. But on day 12 of the Diddy trial, those whispers turned into words, and those words became a reckoning. Eddie Murphy, once the king of comedy, the blockbuster mainstay, walked into that courtroom from a side door, completely unannounced. Reporters gasped. The jury leaned in. And for the first time in the entire trial, even Diddy himself froze. No one saw it coming. Not the media, not the lawyers, not even Diddy. What Eddie said that day didn't just shake the courtroom. It cracked open a vault of secrets that have been sealed tight for decades. But why now? Why after all these years? That's what we're here to answer. And by the time you finish watching this video, you'll realize that Eddie didn't just tell a story, he issued a warning. Here's what you'll learn. What exactly happened at a party so exclusive, even A-list celebrities were forced to give up their phones? Why did Eddie Murphy vanish from Hollywood at the peak of a comeback? And what is this unspoken blacklist that insiders whisper about, but no one dares confirm? What you're about to hear has been confirmed by court transcripts reported by inner-city press. These aren't accusations. They are statements made in front of a judge and jury. This is more than just a scandal. This is the story of a man who saw the engine behind Hollywood's glitz and chose to walk away. So if you've ever wondered what really happens behind closed doors in the world's most powerful industry, stay with us, because for the first time, someone finally said the quiet part out loud. It was supposed to be just another day in court, legal motions, case files, a parade of minor witnesses. Reporters were already half asleep typing summaries before things even started. Then a marshal opened a side door and Eddie Murphy stepped into the room. Everything stopped. Reporters jolted upright. The jury instinctively leaned forward. Even the judge tilted his head. But the most striking reaction came from Sean Diddy Combs. He didn't blink. He didn't speak. He just froze, eyes locked on Eddie like he was staring into a mirror from a past he never thought would surface. No one expected Murphy to testify. Not the press, not the legal teams, not even the prosecution. And that was intentional. According to court documents, Eddie's appearance was so tightly held that even members of his own team weren't told until the night before. It was a move meant to preserve the impact, to catch everyone off guard. And it worked. As he took the witness stand, there was no grand entrance, no dramatic pause, just a calm, measured presence that didn't match the chaos his testimony would unleash. "I've been quiet for decades," Eddie began, his voice steady. "But after what I saw, I had to step away from Hollywood, and I've carried that weight ever since." He adjusted the microphone, looked directly at Diddy, then said something no one expected. "I left Hollywood because I saw too much, and because I couldn't unsee it." The words didn't echo, they exploded. Quietly, powerfully, like a pin being pulled from a grenade. You could feel the shift in the room, a tension that wasn't just emotional, it was historical. Because Eddie wasn't there to speculate. He was there to testify. He wasn't giving an opinion, he was giving a warning. And what followed would peel back the layers of a world most people only dream about, revealing a reality more disturbing than anyone had imagined. What he described next would shake the courtroom, chill the press, and make even the most seasoned attorneys rethink what they thought they knew about the entertainment elite. And it all started with a phone call and a party invitation. Back in 2006, Eddie Murphy was on the brink of something huge. Again, a career revival. Studio doors were wide open. Calls came in daily. Award buzz, high-profile scripts, and the kind of deals reserved for legends. I had no shortage of work, he told the court. The phone was ringing like I was in my 20s again. And then, one evening, a call came through that felt different. Not from an agent, not from a publicist. From a producer, high level, respected, but off the grid for this one. There was a party. Private residence, Hollywood Hills. No names, no schedule, just, it's the kind of night where futures are made. Eddie had heard the stories. Everyone had. These weren't parties in the traditional sense. They were tests, experiences, hosted by Diddy, phones confiscated, cameras banned, guests hand-picked, and once inside, you didn't talk about it. Eddie hesitated. Then he said yes. And as soon as he pulled up, he felt it. Not excitement. Not even curiosity. Dread. The estate was enormous, surrounded by high walls and iron gates. A biometric scanner verified each guest. Valets in black suits took his phone and handed him a card. It said only one thing: be who you really are. Inside, the silence hit first. No music, no laughter, no clinking glasses, just murmurs and stares. Like a masquerade without masks, but somehow still wearing them. Eddie scanned the room. Familiar faces, A-list actors, athletes, executives, all standing perfectly still, perfectly behaved, as if choreographed. But it was more than eerie. It was calculated. Then came the woman in red heels and the man in a robe, silently walking past. No one reacted. That's when it hit me, Eddie testified. This wasn't about celebration. This was about power. He was about to slip out when a familiar voice called his name. Diddy. He walked over, smiling wide, as if Eddie were family. Threw an arm around him. Brother, it's about time you came home. Eddie tried to joke, tried to mask the discomfort, but Diddy wasn't joking. He didn't mean Hollywood, Eddie said. He meant this. What followed felt like a tour. Room after room, guest after guest. Diddy whispered names, dropped facts. That one just greenlit a 200mm film. That one does whatever I tell him. But then they stopped. At a thick wooden door. This is where the choices get made, Diddy said. You want to stay funny and broke, or you want to level up? Eddie laughed, nervously, but Diddy didn't laugh. Through the door, Eddie saw a camera tripod. In plain sight. Nothing hidden, just waiting. People walked in looking anxious, came out either glowing or empty. I didn't go in, Eddie told the court. I made an excuse. Said I needed a drink. Diddy nodded, smiled again. No rush. We're all family here. That moment? That was the line. It stopped being a party. It became a ritual. Eddie tried to leave, but a woman at the door stopped him. You're not done yet, are you? She asked, handing him a drink. And then she said it. Nobody leaves before the experience. The phrase echoed in his head. I walked back in, he said, because I needed to know. And God forgive me, I saw it. Eddie re-entered the main lounge, but everything had changed. The house was darker now. Music, if it was ever playing, was gone. Conversations had stopped entirely. The air was heavier, not just with silence, but with something unspoken, like tension with a pulse. A group was being ushered down a hallway. Eddie followed, not because he wanted to, but because something told him he needed to see it through, to understand what Hollywood had become. They entered a large room, dimly lit with candles and veiled in velvet drapes. A long table sat at the center, polished, formal, the kind of table made for decisions, not dinners. There were trays laid, out, silver, closed, and standing at the head of the table was Diddy, smiling, like a host welcoming his guests to something sacred. Tonight's about how far you'll go, he said. Because greatness doesn't come cheap. Eddie scanned the faces around the table. These weren't random people. They were names, powerhouses, box office leaders, icons. And they were all quiet, watching, waiting. Then Diddy looked at one guest in particular, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. A tray was placed in front of him, silver, sealed. A gloved man lifted the lid. Inside, raw monkey brains, still pink, still steaming. Some laughed awkwardly. A few looked away, but Diddy leaned forward. "Come on, Rock. You eat that? The roll is yours." The room froze. Eddie said he couldn't believe what he was seeing. A man at the peak of his stardom being tested, not for his talent, but for his obedience. And then Dwayne did it. No hesitation. No expression. He picked up the fork, ate, swallowed. Diddy clapped. "That's what I'm talking about." Then he turned to the rest of the table. "Who's next?" Eddie said the question wasn't just rhetorical, it was spiritual. "I froze," he told the court. "I felt sick. I looked for the door." But before he could move, Diddy was in front of him. "You ready, preacher boy?" Eddie looked at him and said, "I didn't come here for this." Diddy leaned in, face close, voice low. "Then why are you here?" That moment, Eddie said, crystallized everything. It wasn't just about eating something disgusting. It was about proving you'd do what you were told. He backed away from the table. Diddy smiled again. "You'll be back when you're ready to really make it." But Eddie didn't come back. He walked out, not running, just walking. With purpose. "I wasn't scared of what they'd do to me," he said. "I was scared of what they could do to others." Outside, the air felt different, like he'd left a different planet. But the price for walking away would come fast and hit harder than any punchline ever could. He wasn't just rejecting a plate, he was rejecting the rules of a system. And from that moment on, the system would reject him right back. Eddie didn't speak to anyone on the drive home. Not his driver, not his assistant, not even his family that night, because he knew. He hadn't just left a party. He had exited the most exclusive circle in Hollywood. And within weeks, he felt the change. "I didn't hear a door slam," Eddie testified. "I just noticed they stopped opening. Projects that were greenlit suddenly went into development hell. Roles that had been tailored for him were quietly recast. Directors who had praised his work months before stopped returning calls. His agent of 7 years, gone. Without warning, without explanation. "I thought maybe it was a phase," Eddie said. "Maybe the industry was shifting. Maybe I was just getting cold." But the pattern became undeniable. Meetings that were once warm turned sterile. Scripts stopped landing on his desk. Invitations disappeared. Studio executives who once toasted to him at parties avoided eye contact at award shows. One producer, someone Eddie considered a friend, reportedly told a colleague, "He's not aligned anymore." "Aligned with what?" Eddie asked. "Because I said no to a tray of monkey brains?" But he knew the answer. He had refused the initiation, and the machine doesn't take kindly to defiance. "I was never blacklisted officially," he said. "No email, no headline, just silence. And that's how the real blacklist works. No one sends a memo, no one shouts, they just stop talking." People still smiled in meetings, still shook his hand. But behind the glass, behind the nods, the verdict was already written. Too difficult, too righteous, too unpredictable, too honest. "I didn't lose jobs," Eddie said. "I just never got the chance to fight for them." And as weeks turned to months, the reality settled in. He hadn't walked out of just one house. He had walked out of Hollywood. By now, Eddie understood this wasn't about one party. It wasn't even about one man. It was a system, a machine that didn't need to scream to punish you. It only needed to whisper. And at the center of that system, Eddie said, was something invisible, but very real. A list, he told the court, unwritten, unspoken. But everyone in the industry knows it exists. It's not printed, it's not emailed, but you feel it. It's the list of names you don't challenge, the people you don't question, the untouchables. Diddy's on that list, Eddie said plainly. So is Tyler Perry. Oprah Winfrey helped write it. The courtroom tensed. Reporters froze mid-keystroke. The judge leaned forward, cautioning Eddie to avoid speculation. "I'm not speculating, Your Honor," he replied. "I lived it." Eddie explained that the list wasn't some secret file. It was a boundary, an understanding passed silently through meetings, dinners, and casual phone calls. Once someone's name appeared there, they became immune, not because they were flawless, but because they were feared. He didn't suggest every person on that list participated in the darkness, but they knew, and they looked the other way. They didn't have to join in, Eddie said. They just had to stay silent, and that was enough. He told the jury about a conversation with a fellow actor, someone once close. Eddie had confided in him, thinking he'd understand. The response? "You're crossing a line, man. They don't come back for people who cross it." That friend never called again. "That's the price," Eddie said. "You speak the truth. You lose your circle." He submitted email chains, text messages, and dated call logs to the court, all showing how his contacts, some of the biggest names in the business, went from warm to non-existent after that night. "They don't blacklist you with bullets," he said. "They blacklist you with silence. And the people at the top, they don't just benefit from the system, they protect it." As Eddie finished his testimony, the courtroom wasn't just quiet, it was breathless. He had peeled back the curtain, named the names, exposed the rituals. But what lingered most wasn't the horror, it was the cost. "I lost the spotlight," Eddie said, "but I found my peace." The prosecutor asked one final question. "Why now?" Eddie paused, exhaled, then answered, "Because the walls are finally falling." He spoke of Cassie, of Monique, of Prince's long-forgotten warnings. He said their voices reminded him he wasn't alone, that maybe, this time, the truth could outrun the machine. "I'm not doing this to bring Diddy down," he said. "I'm doing this so nobody else has to be built up by him." Then he stood. The courtroom stood with him, not out of formality, out of respect. Eddie turned to the jury and said the words that would echo beyond the courthouse. "Hollywood doesn't run on talent, it runs on submission." And his final line, "Don't protect the pretty lie. Let the truth be ugly."